The two different segments come to my mind. So one is the hard skill, one is the soft skill. Problem solving is another important aspect that we look at. I
Yes.
think more or less all of us have that that intelligence in us.
What would be the common mistakes that you find in candidates during the interview?
1,500 odd GCCs in India and some 1,000 odd GCCs are expected in the next few years. We try to maximize the strength. So the whole coding thing, hands-on thing, that's the strength of engineers. So fine, it works out fine. Doesn't work out, it's okay.
Welcome, sir. I guess
Thank you.
now we can say the tables are turned today. How do you feel?
It is great, and thanks for the invite, and I'm glad to be part of this platform.
We are glad to have you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
I guess should we jump straight into it? Should we start with the
Yes,
questions?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a lot of first years and second years watching the podcast also, Unscripted's audience. So what, from your perspective, are the key skills and qualities that you would look for in a candidate as a recruiter?
Yeah, sure. So when I look at that specific question, the two different segments come to my mind. So one is the hard skill, one is the soft skill. So in the hard skill, it's the essentially the fundamentals of what you are being taught in the college. For example, data structure algorithm, your database, your networking, the compiler, the operating systems. So these are the things, and you have to be very, very, strong in that. The fundamentals should be clear. So there is no compromise on that. Yeah. So that's the hard skill part of it, and programming coding is part of that. So when it comes to the soft skill, there are a few things which stand out from the recruiter point of view. When you go to the recruitment, now we look at these things specifically. The first thing is the attitude. Yeah, they say the companies, the corporates, they hire for the aptitude, and they train for the skill. Yeah. So attitude is very important. When I say attitude, it's essentially the energy level, the enthusiasm, the can-do attitude is what we look at. Then teamwork. That's extremely important because in this global world now, the global village we say it now, right? In this, it's very important that the person should be able to work with people in different geographies, different nationalities,
Yes.
across a different diversity domain. So it's very important that the person should be able to work with the team. That's the second thing. The critical thinking, analytical thinking goes without saying. Should the person should be able to exhibit that. Problem solving is another important aspect that we look at. So problem solving is essentially the approach to the problem. How the person is approaching the problem. You may not be able to solve something, but what's your approach, right? That's
Yes.
extremely important. And I think last not the least is learnability, because in this technology industry, things are moving very fast. Probably every 3 years, 4 years, the new tech stack comes in, it becomes obsolete, or some new version comes in. So you have to constantly
Yes.
keep learning. So learnability becomes very, very important. Yeah. So I think these are the key things that we'll look at.
Okay. So would you say that soft skills or hard skills, any one is more important than the other, or is it a balance?
Well, I think the soft skill, both are important. But I think what happens, the soft skill is something which is not, it's not easy to learn. Hard skill is something, you have to probably, all of us are engineers, right? So I
Yes.
think more or less all of us have that, that intelligence in us that, we can pick up the hard skill, right? You probably need to put the effort and you can pick up the hard skill. I think it's not very, very difficult for the engineers. The difficult part is the soft skill. And, there's something called growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So I have seen this in the job itself. The people who are already working here. For the freshers, the people who are in the college, it's a different matter for them. But the people who have been working in the industry for quite a long time, for them also, sometimes it's very hard to learn the soft skill. So it's essentially hardware into the brain. The soft skills sometimes are hardware into the brain, and it's something which can be worked upon, which can be changed. But sometimes it bit harder than the hard skill. So to say, it's a bit ironic to say that, but yeah, that's how it is. But it's not something which cannot be done, or cannot be achieved, but something which we have to put effort and something doable.
So what would be the common mistakes that you find in candidates during the interviews? something that stands out?
Yeah, I think there are few mistakes people go do before going to the interview, and few mistakes while being in the interview. So before going to the interview, I think people should do bit of research about the
Yes.
organization, right? A lot of people, they can go to wiki at least, right? Can look up or they go to the website. The two most common places they can go. But I see a lot of people don't do that. So when it comes to a meaningful engagement or show interest for the organization, they are not able to showcase that. That's one of the very common mistake. The second thing also I have seen, people don't think through what kind of questions they might encounter. Yeah. And specifically there on the hard skill part, I think they do a good job. They
Yes.
probably collect the questions and all that stuff. They do a good job on the hard skill, but on the soft skill side, and especially they need to do something, the second order thinking, not the first order thinking, the second order thinking. Like, the interviewer asks a question, you give an answer, but what are the follow-up question? Many times in the follow-up question is where the interviewer they want to catch, if the answer is not consistent enough, not coherent enough. So that
Trick the
second,
candidate.
yeah, the second order thinking is what people need to put some effort to do that before the interview. Yeah. The other thing, people don't know, they don't know the answer. That's okay. You're not expected to know all the answers, but people sometimes don't know the answer, but they try to babble around and just, they just, try to take a guess. So those are things people should avoid. Another thing I would say is essentially, people, when they talk about the project or whatever, they should talk about the impact, right? Not just I did this, but what is the impact in terms of probably,
Yes.
I did this, so what? That's the
Yes.
question they should ask themselves. And I think, many times in the end also I've seen that, they don't engage. When, students are asked, do you have any questions? A lot of them, they say, no, no questions. So, right. So they should think of some, some relevant question to them. It's not for the sake of asking questions, but let's say if they have some question about, what are, let's say, what are development programs you have, learning development programs you have, what kind of careers
Yes.
you have. Now, those questions might have already been answered, in the pre-placement talk, or in the pre-placement talk, there could be a lot of things they may not have understood, or they might have follow-up questions. That's the opportunity. They should, in a meaningful way, they should engage and show their interest. I think these are
Yes.
some of the things they should do. Yeah.
So a few things that actually stand out, you know a lot about. Then what would you say about the current trends in the job market from your viewpoint? And how can a student deal with it? Like, how do we keep up with it?
There are a lot of opportunities coming up. Yeah. So that's one. And the second thing is also, I think there's a recent projection that by NASCOM that the hiring is going to go up by 12 to 14% in 2024. Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah. We should have all the fundamentals clear, as I said, the standard data structure algorithm is one of the most important. I think operating system, compiler, those things are probably okay,
Yes.
but data structure algorithm is absolutely must. People should be very, very clear on that. The coding, people should be, doing a lot of coding, going to lit code and, whatever, or have their profile and GitHub, contribute to open source project. That's a great way to, be involved, right? So it's not only, the college itself, right? You have to look beyond that, but since you have first or second or third year students in probably in this podcast, they have to start building that profile from day one as soon as possible. So that,
Yes.
over a period of time, they can build that profile and then, then it would be easier for them to land a dream job, when the time comes. Yeah.
So how would you say, since you started out, 26 years of experience, that is a long time. So how do you think the industry has evolved since then? So you are associated with the fintech industry.
Yeah.
So how would you say that has changed with the evolution of technology?
I would say actually the change has been more, pronounced in the last 2 3 years. I remember, we have been, I was in Credit Suisse in Singapore, then I moved to India 12 years back. So the first 7 8 years, it was pretty much same. The way we have been doing interviews and all that, is pretty much same. But I think last 2 3 years, I just said, the two key changes, two seismic, shift. So one is this, as I said, democratized, completely democratized.
Yes.
Anybody, anywhere, is good. You can get a job. Okay, and what it means that it has moved away from the responsibility of the organization to the responsibility of the individual. I mean, it has always been the responsibility of the individual, but the organization were playing a big part. There used to be huge recruitment team, huge recruitment budget.
Yes.
to do these recruitments. But a lot of these companies have reduced their recruitment budget, recruitment number of people, they've reduced it. Because what has happened is now that the people on the other side, like the students, you know, now the avenue has opened up for them. The reachability has opened up for them. They can go and apply to the Facebook, Google, or anywhere, or the all these coding sites and all that. So it has become decentralized from centralized. Recruiting become decentralized,
Yes.
which is a good thing for the candidates, and that's good for the students, and they can take care of their own career. They are proactive. Then they can
Yes.
yeah. So that's I think one thing. Second thing is there is a more focus on coding. 3-4 years back, we would go to the colleges and we will probably do a aptitude test and probably not coding test, or probably will maybe give some coding question in the interview and whatever. But that has changed completely. Now, almost everybody is doing a coding test, right? Because the previous model did not work well, right? It was not very successful. So, it's all dependent on coding. So people have to do coding. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is no
Not
getting
an
away.
option.
Not an option. They have to do coding. When you go to lead code and do different kind of coding. I think a lot of time people I think forget that, but you do different kind of use cases, different kind of coding, different kind of data structures. I think that's what people need to do that. I think these two are the key difference I have seen.
So, recently we have had the recent AI technologies like applicant tracking systems, and those have been used in the recruitment process. So, what do you think about that? How can a candidate make his 8 skills proof in the
I think
resume?
you should not worry about it. Okay. First of all, a lot of companies are still on that old system where they just look at what's the GPA, CGPA, what's the branch, computer science, IT, whatever, right? They still a lot of companies still on that. You know,
Yeah.
Few companies, they are trying to move to the AI thing where they can look at the, let's say, the JD, job description, and then look at the CV and then see look at whether it matches the person's profile matches the JD. Then they will shortlist the candidate. But just because
Okay.
there's a job which needs machine learning, but I don't know machine learning, I should put machine learning. Doesn't help, as I said, right? So focus on your strength, right? They say it takes more effort to work on your weakness than to work on your strength. If you have to enhance a little bit on your strength,
True, true.
at least try to you know overcome the weakness as much as possible, but try to maximize your strength. So if
So, what advice do you have for individuals in engineering aspiring to work at the intersection of finance and technology? Since you are associated with the fintech industry, what would you?
so there are some jobs which has more of finance, less of technology, then vice versa. For example, some are more of technology and the finance, less of finance, right? The different kind of roles. For example, BA, business analyst, is a role which has more of finance, more of domain, and less of technology, right? Some BA is actually completely domain, completely focus on finance, right? But nowadays we have more and more, as I said, the trend is towards more of hands-on, more of coding and all that. So now, this trend in the industry, the BA should be hands-on as well. So BA should also know the technology. So analyst was like something like the guy who does the coding and sorry, the guy who knows who does both the coding and interest in the business, right? So the BA nowadays, yes, the domain as well as you get involved in the technology, like you should be able to run SQL queries and some Unix queries and all of that. It'll be bit of both, right? So that's one kind of role. The second kind of role which involves more of technology and less of business, like the algorithmic trade developers, algorithmic trading developers, the quants. So those are other guys which are more of technology and less of finance. But my advice, don't think of that too much. When you get into the organization, focus on coding, learn coding as much as possible. But from the beginning, I had seen a few years back, people would just come to the organization and say, I want to be BA, I don't want to do coding, I want to do project management. So those kind of things, I think people should probably move away from that thought process, do the coding as much as possible, and then you decide after a few years in the organization, 2-3 years, you decide try something different.
Yeah. Okay, so you have been recruiting for a long time now. I think 20 plus years or something. So, do you have any memorable experience, like in an interview, any candidate that left a mark?
Yeah, that is a very ironic situation actually. That was not for fresh grad interview. It was actually it was experienced. I was in Singapore, and this person was in Russia. So my manager um, asked me to interview this guy and select. Okay, I called up the guy. Yeah, he was probably sleeping. He woke up, picked up the call, asked few questions. He could not answer. I went back and told my manager, "No, I'm not selecting this guy." My manager said, "No, no, I have worked with this guy. He's really good. You select, you'll see." So grudgingly, I selected, because manager has the confidence. He had seen him. Okay, fine. I selected him, and turned out he was probably one of the best hire of my career. Okay, he was the best, in terms of very well rounded in technology, communication, everything. Okay, so the point I'm trying to tell, interview is not a science. It's not book. It might go wrong. Many times we go wrong. Select the right candidates, we select the wrong candidates, or we leave out very strong candidates. The same thing on the other side as well, right? So from a candidate perspective, they don't get selected in something, they should not be, disheartened, right? Just that, the interviewer asked something that incidentally these guys did not know. No way it's a reflection of the sum total of what they are, right? So people should not be disappointed. People should not be stressed out when they go to the interview. Just give your best.
We are almost at the end, sir. Any last words of advice you would have for people just starting out in the industry?
Okay, probably I think two, three things. One, before entering the industry. One, while the initial days of the industry, and probably another thing probably for the longer term, I would say. So before entering the industry, I think a lot of time we see people selecting companies on the basis of compensation, who's offering the highest package. Becomes a probably prestige thing, whatever, right? Peer pressure, whatever. But don't go into that. Don't get into the rat race. I think look for the organization which offers learning and growth opportunity. Might be offering few lakhs less, that's fine. But if it offers the learning and growth opportunity which aligns with a longer term aspiration, okay, go with that. Even if offers lesser salary. That's the first thing before entering the organization. Yeah. The second thing I would say, once you're into the organization, I have seen a lot of people, they initially come and then within 6 months, 1 year, they get disillusioned. Not necessarily you'll always succeed. Okay, not necessarily you would always be in the first place. There's no first place here. Okay, it's a teamwork. Okay, industrial grade systems are not some pet project in the college, right? Hundreds of thousands of lines of code, right? How can one person come and in 6 months be a star, right? There have been people already there, right? So what happens is these people, they come and they obviously they can't perform at the same level as who are already there. Okay, then they become frustrated. They don't get the same rating. We have usually most of the companies still using that something called bell curve, right? People at the top. There are different grading systems like triple A, double A, B, like that, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't get. They probably get the just met expectation, not exceed expectation. Suddenly, they don't have a gold medal, a silver medal, all that. They think, oh, okay, I'm not. It's not working out. It's not coding not for me, or technical industry not for me. I'm not successful. I'm not good enough. So from high flying, then they suddenly they get a very hard landing. Okay, and they become too harsh on themselves. I've seen a lot of people also, in my career, come and cry and all that stuff, right? So, so I only advise, don't be too harsh on yourself. Give yourself time. Okay, and then everybody else who's an expert now, they also they had taken their time to learn the system, right? Now they're expert, right?
Yes.
So you have to give yourself, some time. That's the third organization. Yeah. So in the beginning phase, you put a lot of focus on technology. Okay. Then as you keep going up, then more of business, then more of organization, right? But all these three things, throughout your career, you need to keep working on these three things. Okay, to varying degree, as I said. But keep working on these things. You can't ignore, one area. I have seen people, only focus on technology. They'll say, I don't need to learn, business, or I don't need to worry about how the organization works. You have to understand the
Thank you
organization.
so much. This has been very helpful, and I'm sure that all our viewers will also find this highly benefiting to them. Thank you so much for having talking to us, sir. We're
You're
very
welcome. My
happy.
pleasure.